What's going on, everyone? So I was sitting at my desk this morning scrolling through social media and procrastinating on some work I was supposed to be doing, and I had NBA Today playing on my iPad off to the side just for some background noise. I wasn't really paying attention at first because I figured it was just going to be the usual debate about whether the Lakers are contenders or pretenders, the same tired arguments we've been hearing all season. But then Stephen A. Smith said something that made me literally pause what I was doing and turn up the volume. He started talking about Malik Monk potentially returning to the Lakers, and the way he was framing it wasn't just speculation or hot takes for ratings. It was actually a really thoughtful breakdown of why this move makes sense for everyone involved. Let me walk you through everything that went down on the show, because by the end of the segment, I was completely convinced that the Lakers need to make this happen. And it connects to so many bigger themes about where this team is right now and what they need to do to actually compete for a championship. So they opened the segment with Stephen A. doing this whole thing about being honest and fair even when it hurts, talking about how, as a fan and analyst, you want to find the positives and hype up your team. But at some point, you have to stop making excuses and just tell the truth. And the truth he was laying out was pretty brutal, but hard to argue with. The Lakers just aren't good enough right now. They're a good basketball team, no doubt about that. They're a very good basketball team, but very good isn't elite or top-tier contender status. There are levels to this, as Stephen A. kept saying, and the Lakers aren't a team that he would bet on against any of the elite teams come playoff time. Shannon Sharpe jumped in here agreeing, but providing some nuance, talking about how the Lakers do have a puncher's chance, how they could theoretically win it all with the roster as currently constructed. You've got Luka Doncic, you've got LeBron James, who's still playing at an incredibly high level, and if Austin Reeves continues playing the way he's been playing, they at least have a shot. Shannon was making this point about how the Lakers' game and scheme is better suited for playoff basketball than regular season. They're one of the best half-court teams in all of basketball, and that style gets maximized come playoff time when games slow down and every possession matters. Hey, what's up, everyone? 1 second before we dive in. That like button right there? Hit it now. Takes literally 1 second, but makes a massive difference in growing this channel and reaching more fans. Just smash that like real quick. Every like pushes this video further, so do me that favor right now. Mad Dog Russo was more skeptical though, saying that just because you have a chance doesn't mean it's something you should count on or bet on. He was arguing that this Lakers team is built to maybe get to the second round with the right matchup, but beyond that, it's hard to see them beating the true elite teams in a 7-game series. Mad Dog wasn't worried about the Lakers falling into the play-in or anything catastrophic like that, but he was worried about them going on an extended losing streak that could tank their seeding. Malika Andrews brought up the current 2-game losing streak and how the schedule doesn't get easier. They've got Houston coming up on Christmas Day, and Houston is very well equipped to beat them. Then Detroit after that, and Malika was saying she could see the Lakers losing 4 out of 5 games or something like that, which would be the difference between being the 2 or 3 seed versus falling all the way down to the 5 or 6 seed. Stephen A. had predicted before the season that the Lakers would be a 4 or 5 seed at worst, and as long as they're a top 4 seed and get home court in the first round, that's really all he cares about. But here's where the conversation started shifting towards solutions rather than just problems. Shannon was talking about how the Lakers aren't that far away, especially in basketball where 1 or 2 guys can be all the difference. This isn't football where you need upgrades at 10 different positions. In basketball, you're only running 5 guys at a time. So if you can get 1 or 2 high-end additions, it can completely transform a team. And that's when they started discussing potential trade targets. And Malik Monk's name came up in a way that actually made a lot of sense when you heard the reasoning behind it. Stephen A. started laying out the case for Malik Monk, and the first thing he emphasized was the Lakers' desperate need for bench scoring. The Lakers' second unit is dead last in scoring in the entire league this season, which is just unacceptable for a team with championship aspirations. You need production from guys coming off the bench. You need someone who can come in and give you instant offense when your starters need a breather. Monk is exactly that kind of player. A microwave scorer who can heat up quickly and take over games in stretches. Mad Dog jumped in, talking about Monk's ability to create his own shot and generate advantages with the ball in his hand, which would alleviate so much of the offensive burden on LeBron James and Luka Doncic. Right now, when LeBron sits, the Lakers' offense completely stagnates because they don't have secondary playmakers who can run the show. Monk can handle the ball, run pick and rolls, get downhill, and either score himself or create for others. That's invaluable, especially in the playoffs when you need multiple guys who can initiate offense. Shannon brought up Monk's three-point shooting, noting that he's shooting 41.4% from three this season, which is elite efficiency. The Lakers desperately need floor spacing and shooting from the perimeter, and adding Monk would help address that weakness. When defenses can collapse into the paint and not worry about kick-out threes because the Lakers don't have enough shooters, it makes everything harder for LeBron and Luka when they're trying to attack. Monk spaces the floor and forces defenses to respect him beyond the arc. But here's what really got the panel excited: the familiarization fact. Malika brought up how Monk played for the Lakers during the 2021-22 season and was actually really good for them, becoming a fan favorite in that 1 year he was with the organization. He knows the culture, he knows the expectations, he knows how to play with LeBron, and that familiarity would make his transition back to LA seamless. There wouldn't be a long adjustment period where he's trying to figure out his role. He'd be able to contribute immediately. Stephen A. was getting really animated talking about the Sacramento Kings' perspective and why they'd be willing to trade Monk. Sacramento has an excess of guards and ball handlers. They're trying to balance their roster with more size and front court help, and Monk is someone they could move to address those needs. The Kings also want salary cap flexibility and future draft picks, and the Lakers could provide both of those things in a trade package. This isn't a situation where the Lakers would be begging Sacramento to make a deal. The Kings actually have motivation to move Monk, which changes the leverage dynamics. Mad Dog started breaking down what a potential trade package might look like, and this is where things got really specific and realistic. The Lakers would probably have to include someone like D'Angelo Russell or Rui Hachimura to make the salaries match, plus potentially a future first-round pick or some combination of second-round picks. Shannon was arguing that D'Angelo Russell makes the most sense as the outgoing piece because his contract is significant enough to match Monk's salary, and frankly, Russell has been inconsistent this season and might benefit from a change of scenery. But then they circled back to the bigger picture of what the Lakers actually need to become a true championship contender. Stephen A. made this point that really resonated with me. He said the Lakers need to get either one top-tier guy plus a second-tier guy, or they need to get 3 or 4 second-tier guys to really move the needle. Malik Monk would be one of those second-tier acquisitions, but ideally, you'd want to pair that with another significant addition to really transform the roster. The panel started discussing historical examples of teams that made mid-season moves and completely changed their trajectory. Mad Dog brought up the Dallas Mavericks from the year they went to the NBA Finals, talking about how there were genuine questions about whether they'd even make the play-in tournament. They were the 10th seed for a stretch, and looking like they might miss the playoffs 2 years in a row. Then they traded for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, and everything clicked. They ended up as the 6th seed and made it all the way to the final. Shannon was emphasizing that those two guys, Gafford and Washington, weren't viewed as high-end stars or anything. They were rotation players, bench guys coming from bad teams. But when you get the right pieces and they fit your system, and you get that new team effect where guys are energized by playing for a contender instead of a lottery team, it can completely change everything. PJ Washington went from Charlotte, which was tanking every year, to Dallas, which was trying to win a championship. And that psychological shift mattered. Same with Gafford, going from Washington to a legitimate contender. Malika brought up another Lakers example from a few years ago when they started the season 2-10 and looked absolutely disastrous, then traded for Jared Vanderbilt and D'Angelo Russell mid-season and completely turned things around. They ended up making it to the Western Conference Finals that year, and even though they got swept by Denver, the The point is that 2 additions completely changed the team's trajectory. Vanderbilt's defense alongside Anthony Davis immediately made them one of the best defensive teams in basketball, and Russell provided the secondary playmaking and scoring they desperately needed. Stephen A. was pounding the desk, talking about how basketball is unique in that just 1 or 2 players can make all the difference because you're only running 5 guys at a time. This isn't football where you need depth across 22 starting positions. In basketball, if you can upgrade your top 5 to 7 guys in the rotation, that's massive. And Malik Monk would be exactly that kind of upgrade for the Lakers bench unit, which is currently their biggest weakness. But then, they had to address the uncomfortable reality that's been plaguing the Lakers all season. They keep losing in the same way every single time. Mad Dog was going off about how there's a clear blueprint to beat the Lakers, and teams are just following it over and over. You out-hustle them, you outwork them, you win the 50-50 balls, you push the pace and get out in transition, and you jack up threes. The Lakers can't defend the three-point line, and those missed threes lead to long rebounds, which turn into transition opportunities if you're winning the hustle plays. Shannon added that when you push the pace against the Lakers and don't let their defense get set, they struggle mightily. LeBron and the veterans on the team want to play in the half court, where they can control the tempo and execute their sets. But when teams are running at them in transition all game long, the Lakers get worn down and can't keep up. That's been the consistent theme in their loss. Teams that play fast and shoot a lot of threes give them major problems. Malika was saying that the concerning part isn't just that the Lakers are losing games, because every team loses games in an 82-game season. Even OKC has lost 3 out of their last 5 or whatever. The problem is the manner in which the Lakers are losing. They're getting blown out in dominant fashion, following the same blueprint every time. It's not like they're losing close games or having nights where they just can't hit shots. They're getting destroyed by teams that exploit their defensive weaknesses. Stephen A. brought it back to Malik Monk and how adding him could help address some of these issues. Obviously, Monk isn't going to single-handedly fix the Lakers' defensive problems or their struggles defending the three-point line, but having another scoring option off the bench means the Lakers can maintain offensive firepower even when their starters are resting. Right now, when LeBron sits, the Lakers' offense falls off a cliff, and they can't score, which means they're constantly playing from behind and getting into scramble mode. Mad Dog made this observation that the Lakers need to make a trade regardless. Everyone watching the team knows they need to make a move. The fans know it, the media knows it, and presumably the front office knows it too. The question isn't whether they should trade for someone, it's who they should target and what they're willing to give up to get that person. And Malik Monk represents a realistic target who doesn't require gutting the entire roster to acquire. Shannon was saying that if the Lakers could get Malik Monk plus one other quality addition, whether that's a wing defender or a stretch big or another guard who can defend, they'd suddenly look a lot different. It's not about one single move saving the season. It's about making 2 or 3 smart additions that collectively elevate the team. Monk would solve the bench scoring issue, and then you still have your resources to go after someone who addresses the defense. The panel then started discussing other potential trade targets beyond just Monk, and they mentioned players like Keon Ellis from Sacramento who could provide perimeter defense, or stretching the budget to go after someone like Andrew Wiggins, who could be a two-way wing. The dream scenario would be getting Monk for the bench scoring, plus someone like Wiggins for the starting lineup defense and two-way play. That combination of additions could legitimately transform the Lakers into contenders. Malika brought up the urgency of the situation with LeBron's age and the closing championship window. LeBron is 40 years old, or about to turn 40, and while he's still playing at an incredibly high level, nobody knows how much longer that's going to last. The Lakers can't afford to waste another season hoping things work out organically. They need to be aggressive at the trade deadline and make the moves necessary to compete right now, while they still have LeBron playing like a top 10 player in the league. Stephen A. was passionate about this point, saying that the Lakers front office needs to stop being passive and actually pull the trigger on deals. Rob Pelinka has been criticized for being too conservative at times, for waiting for the perfect deal instead of making the good deal that's available right now. With Malik Monk, you have a realistic trade target who fills a major need, who has familiarity with the organization, and who doesn't cost so much that you can't make other moves. There's no excuse not to pursue this aggressively. But Shannon provided some counter-perspective, talking about how trades are hard to pull off in practice even when they make sense on paper. Sacramento would have to actually want what the Lakers are offering, the salaries have to match up under the CBA rules, and both teams have to agree on the draft compensation. Just because fans and media think a trade makes sense doesn't mean it's easy to execute, and sometimes deals fall apart at the last minute over small detail. Mad Dog wasn't having it though, saying that good general managers find ways to make deals happen when they're motivated. If Rob Pelinka really wants Malik Monk and believes he's the missing piece, he needs to be creative in structuring a package that works for Sacramento. Maybe you involve a third team to facilitate the trade. Maybe you include extra draft picks to sweeten the pot. Maybe you take on a bad contract from Sacramento to give them financial flexibility. The point is, you find a way to get it done, rather than just shrugging and saying it's too complicated. The segment was winding down, but Stephen A. wanted to make one final point about the Lakers' ceiling with the current roster versus their ceiling with someone like Malik Monk added. As currently constructed, he sees them as a team that could win a playoff series with the right matchup, maybe get to the second round, but would struggle against the truly elite teams like OKC, Denver, or even the Spurs the way they're playing right now. But if you add Monk and one other quality player, suddenly the calculus changes, and you can legitimately envision them competing in a 7-game series against anyone. Malika wrapped things up by emphasizing that this isn't about the Lakers being a bad team or needing a complete rebuild. They're a good team that's a couple of pieces away from being a great team. And in basketball, those margins matter enormously. The difference between being a second-round exit and a championship contender can literally be 2 players. And Malik Monk represents the kind of realistic, achievable upgrade that could help push them over the edge. What really stuck with me after watching this entire NBA Today segment was how the panel didn't just complain about the Lakers' problems, they actually proposed concrete solutions. Yeah, the bench scoring is terrible. Yeah, they struggle defending the 3. Yeah, they have a blueprint for how teams beat them. But here's a player who could help address at least one of those major issues. And he's actually available, and there's a realistic path to acquiring him. That's valuable analysis, rather than just hot takes, for the sake of hot takes. So, what do you guys think? Should the Lakers go all in on trying to trade for Malik Monk? Or are there better targets they should be pursuing? And what would you be willing to give up in a trade package? Would you include D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, future first-round picks, or some combination of all those things? Let me know in the comments, because after watching NBA Today break all this down, I'm fully convinced that Malik Monk makes a ton of sense for the Lakers. And I'm curious if other fans feel the same way, or if they'd rather see the team go in a different direction at the trade deadline.